Hello there everyone, welcome to Nightmare Narratives. I am your storyteller and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Augustus Whitmore, but everyone calls me Gus. I'm telling you this story because I need someone to know what really happened up there in 1974. What the official reports say about volcanic activity and equipment failure, that's all. Lies. I've got maybe 6 months left before the bottle finally kills me, and I can't take this secret to my grave. I was a park ranger for 18 years, working the Mount St. Helens area of Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Before that, I spent 3 years in Vietnam handling explosives, clearing paths, setting charges, making things go boom when they needed to go boom. Lost my left eye to shrapnel near Da Nang, came home with an eye patch and memories that wouldn't stay buried. The drinking started there, got worse after my wife Margaret took the twins and moved to her sister's place in Portland. "You're not the same man I married," she said before she left. She was right. The war changed me, made me careful, made me paranoid. In the forest, that paranoia kept me alive. I knew every trail, every cave, every lava tube in the Ape Canyon area. I could handle dynamite for avalanche control with my eyes closed. Well, I closed, and I knew the difference between animal tracks and something else entirely. People used to ask me about Bigfoot sightings up there. Loggers would come down with wild stories about something huge watching them from the trees. I'd laugh and tell them it was just bears or elk, maybe too much whiskey around the campfire. Bigfoot's just what loggers blame when they come back empty-handed. I'd say I believed that, right up until October 15th, 1974. That morning started like any other. I was alone in my cabin, nursing a cup of coffee and last night's hangover. The radio crackled to life at 7 a.m. sharp, dispatch checking in with all the rangers, normal stuff. Weather was clear, no fires, no missing hikers. Just me and the mountains and the smell of pine needles and ash from the minor eruption we'd had the week before. The Geological Survey team was due to check in that afternoon. 6 researchers from the University of Washington, up there monitoring volcanic activity. They'd been camping near Ape Canyon for 3 days, taking readings, collecting samples. Smart people with fancy equipment, the kind who thought they could measure and catalog everything in nature. I should have known something was wrong when the animals went quiet. Around noon, I was checking my equipment, rope, medical supplies, flares, my service pistol, standard gear for a welfare check. But the forest felt wrong. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. In 18 years of ranging, I'd never heard the mountains so quiet. The radio crackled at 2:47 p.m. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's voice, panicked and breaking up through static. "Something massive in the trees. It's watching us, ... Oh God, it's then nothing. Dead silence. I tried raising them for 30 minutes. Nothing but static that made my ears hurt. My compass started spinning like a broken toy, and my watch stopped at exactly 2:47. I loaded my pack with emergency supplies, checked my pistol, and headed up the canyon trail. The ash from last week's eruption made tracking easy. Too easy. I found their base camp after an hour of hiking, and my stomach dropped. The tents were shredded, not torn by wind, but ripped apart by something with claws. Equipment scattered everywhere, expensive seismic monitors smashed to pieces, papers blowing in the wind like confetti. Their geological samples, rock stayed, carefully labeled and bagged, were crushed to powder. That's when I saw the first footprint, 22 inches long, pressed deep into the volcanic ash. The weight that made that print had to be enormous, 800 pounds, maybe more. It wasn't a bare paw or anything I'd seen before. It looked almost human, but bigger than any human foot had a right to be. The toes were long, with what looked like claw marks at the tips. I followed the prints deeper into the canyon. The smell hit me first, musky, wild, like a wet dog that had been rolling in something dead. Mixed with it was the copper smell of blood, fresh blood. The trees around me were scarred, bark stripped away in long gouges 12 feet up the trunks. Pieces of torn clothing hung from the branches like prayer flags. I recognized Dr. Mitchell's blue jacket, shredded and stained dark. My military training kicked in. I checked my six, stayed alert, kept moving, but nothing I'd learned in Vietnam had prepared me for what I found next. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was wedged in the fork of a Douglas fir, 25 feet off the ground. Her body was twisted wrong, arms bent at angles that made my stomach turn. But here's the thing that still keeps me awake at night. She was warm, body temperature warm, like she'd just been killed, even though she'd been missing for over 6 hours. I'm not a religious man, but I said a prayer for her anyway. Then I heard it, a sound like nothing I'd ever heard before. Not quite a roar, not quite a scream. It came from deeper in the canyon, echoing off the rock walls. The sound made my teeth ache and my hands shake. Not from fear. Well, not just fear. There was something in that sound that reached into your bones and told you that you were prey. I should have turned back then, should have hiked out and called for backup. But I kept thinking about the other 5 researchers, maybe still alive, maybe needing help. And I kept thinking about Margaret's voice. You never finish anything, Gus. You just run away. The footprints led deeper into the canyon, toward the lava tubes. I'd explored those caves before, knew they went down for miles, connected to chambers that had been formed when the mountain was young and angry. Perfect place to hide something. Perfect place to trap someone. I found Dr. James Chen about a mile in. What was left of him? Anyway, his body had been torn in half, cleanly, like someone had grabbed his arms and legs and pulled. The 2 halves were hung from different trees, 20 feet apart. His entrails were strung between them like some kind of sick decoration. But it was the arrangement that made me understand. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't an animal killing for food or territory. The bodies were displayed, positioned where anyone following the trail would see them. Someone or something was sending a message. I heard branches breaking behind me and spun around, pistol drawn. Nothing there, but the footprints in the ash told a different story. Something huge had been following me, staying parallel to my path, always just out of sight. The prints were fresh, made while I was examining Chen's body. I was being hunted. My hands were shaking as I checked my pistol. 6 rounds, and I had to spare magazines, against something that could tear a man in half and hang him from trees like a Christmas ornament. The odds weren't good. That's when I heard the voice, Gus, clear as day, coming from somewhere to my left. Sarah Mitchell's voice, calling my name like she was still alive. Gus, help me. I knew it wasn't her. I'd seen her broken body in the tree, but the voice was perfect. Every inflection exactly right. Whatever was out there had heard her speak, had learned to copy her voice. Gus, I'm hurt. Please help me. The voice moved, coming from a different direction now. Then another voice. Joined it, Dr. Chen, whose body was hanging in pieces behind me. Ranger Whitmore, we need assistance. Professional.com, just like it sounded on the radio yesterday. I realized I was hyperventilating. The voices were coming from all around me now. 6 different people calling my name, begging for help. But I'd found 2 bodies already, and I had a sinking feeling the other 4 weren't going to be in any shape to talk. The sun was getting low, casting long shadows through the trees. I had maybe 2 hours of daylight left. I could try to make it back to the trailhead, but that meant leaving the other researchers. I could push deeper into the canyon, but that meant following exactly where something wanted me to go. I chose wrong. The voices stopped as soon as I started moving toward the lava tubes. The forest went quiet again, that unnatural silence that made my skin crawl, but I could feel eyes on me, watching from the shadows between the trees. Every few minutes, I'd catch a glimpse of movement, something large and dark, always at the edge of my vision. I found the 3rd body near the entrance to the main lava tube. Mark Rodriguez, the graduate student, was still alive when I reached him, barely. His legs were crushed, pinned under a boulder that had to weigh half a ton. Blood frothed from his mouth when he tried to speak. Ranger, ... he whispered, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. Don't go in there. What happened, son? What did this to you? His eyes were wide, pupils dilated with shock. It was ... It was playing with us, like a cat with mice. Killed them one by one, saved me for last. It wanted me to watch. What was it? Mark's grip tightened. It's not an animal, Ranger. It thinks. It plans. It knew we were coming. Before we even set up camp, he coughed, spraying blood on my jacket. It's been waiting. Waiting for what? But Mark was already gone, his hand going slack in mine. I closed his eyes and said another prayer, then looked up at the lava tube entrance. The opening was maybe 8 feet high, 4 feet wide, big enough for a man to walk through upright, big enough for something much larger. The smart thing would have been to turn back, but I could hear something moving in the darkness beyond the entrance, something breathing, and underneath that, very faint, I heard a human voice calling for help. Someone was still alive in there. I clicked on my flashlight and stepped into the cave. The lava tube stretched ahead of me like a throat, carved smooth by ancient fire. My flashlight beam barely penetrated the darkness, but I could see the tunnel branching off in several directions. The air was thick and humid, carrying that same musky smell, but stronger now. Mixed with it was the stench of decay and something else, something that reminded me of the tiger cages in Vietnam. The walls were covered in scratches, gouges torn into solid rock by something with claws like steel chisels. Some of the marks were fresh, others looked decades old. I was starting to understand that this thing, whatever it was, had been using these caves for a long time. My flashlight beam swept across the floor and caught something that made my blood freeze. Bones, human bones, scattered across the cave floor like broken toys, skulls with the tops cracked open, rib cages crushed flat, leg bones snapped in half and sucked clean. Some of the bones were yellow with age, others still had dried meat clinging to them. I'd walked into a feeding ground. The sound of my boots echoed in the tunnel, and I tried to step lighter. But echoes have a way of carrying in caves, and I knew that anything down here could hear me coming from a mile away. I followed the main tunnel, flashlight beam dancing across the walls, pistol ready in my other hand. That's when I heard the voices again. Gus. This time it was my wife Margaret's voice, coming from somewhere deeper in the cave. Gus, I'm sorry. I should never have left you. I knew it wasn't her. Margaret was safe in Portland with the twins, but the voice was perfect. Every word, exactly how she'd say it. The thing down here had been listening to me, learning from me, maybe for days, maybe for weeks. Daddy. Now it was my daughter's voices, Emma and Sarah, calling for their father. Daddy, we're scared. Please help us. I stopped walking. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the flashlight. This thing knew about my family. It knew the exact words that would hurt me most. I'm coming, I whispered, and immediately hated myself for responding. But what if? What if somehow it really was them? What if this creature had taken them to the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, and my flashlight beam revealed something that made my knees weak? Bodies, 3 of them, arranged in a circle, around what looked like an altar made of stacked skulls. Dr. Elizabeth Torres, the team leader, was tied to the wall with rope made from twisted vines. She was alive, barely conscious, but breathing. The other 2 were Dr. Kevin Walsh and Dr. Amanda Foster. They'd been positioned sitting up, backs against the cave wall, eyes open and staring. At first I thought they were alive too, but when I got closer I could see they were just ... empty. Something had hollowed them out from the inside, left them like empty shells. Torres, I called softly. Dr. Torres, can you hear me? She raised her head, and I saw her lips were cracked and bleeding. Ranger ... Whitmore. Yeah, it's me. I'm gonna get you out of here. No, she whispered. It's a trap. It's been keeping me alive, waiting for you to come. It knows you'll come for survivors. What is it? What's been doing this? Torres looked toward the back of the chamber, where my flashlight beam couldn't reach. It's old Ranger, older than the stories. It's been in these mountains since before the first settlers came. It's territorial, and we invaded its territory. I heard something moving in the darkness beyond my light, something big, shifting, its weight from foot to foot, breathing. It's intelligent, Torres continued. It studies its prey. It watched us for days before it attacked. It knows our names, our voices, our fears. It's been listening to your radio calls, learning about you. That's when I understood. The thing had been planning this from the beginning. It had used the survey team as bait, knowing a ranger would come looking for them. It had arranged the bodies along the trail to lead me exactly where it wanted me to go. I was the real target. The team were just tools to get me here. The explosives, Torres whispered. We planted charges for the geological survey. The detonator, it's in my pack. I saw her backpack lying near the altar of skulls. If I could reach it, maybe I could bring down part of the cave, create a distraction. But first I had to get Torres free. I moved toward her, and that's when it stepped out of the shadows. 11 feet tall, covered in dark hair that looked almost black in the flashlight beam. Its face was wrong, too intelligent, too knowing, human, eyes in an animal's skull, watching me with something that might have been amusement. Old scars crisscrossed its body, evidence of fights it had survived. This wasn't just some animal. This was an apex predator that had been hunting humans for generations. It spoke to me in my own voice. "Hello, Gus," it said, and the words came out of its mouth, in my exact tone, my exact inflection. "I've been waiting for you." I raised my pistol and fired 3 shots center mass. The bullets hit it square in the chest, and it staggered back a step. Then it looked down at the bullet holes, looked back at me, and smiled. That's when I knew I was going to die. The creature moved faster than anything that big had a right to move. 1 second it was 15 feet away. The next it was right in front of me, batting my pistol away like a toy. Its claws raked across my chest, tearing through my jacket and shirt, leaving 4 parallel lines of fire across my ribs. I rolled away and came up running, but the creature was already moving again, appearing at the tunnel entrance like it had teleported there. It wasn't just fast, it seemed to be in multiple places at once, cutting off every escape route. "You can't leave yet, Gus," it said in Margaret's voice. "We haven't finished playing." I pulled out my emergency flare gun, the one I kept for signaling helicopters. The creature tilted its head, curious, and I fired the flare directly at its face. The magnesium burst filled the chamber with brilliant red light, and the creature screamed, clawing at its eyes. That gave me maybe 3 seconds. I dove for Torres's backpack, grabbed the detonator, and ran for the side tunnel. Behind me, the creature was thrashing around the chamber, roaring in pain and fury. The sound was so loud it made my ears ring. I could hear it coming after me as I ran through the narrow tunnel, following the sound of my boots on stone. But I knew these caves better than it did. I'd explored them for years, mapped them in my head. There was a secondary exit about a quarter-mile ahead, if I could reach it. The tunnel branched, and I took the left fork, then the right, then left again. The creature was behind me somewhere, but its roars were getting fainter. I was losing it in the maze of passages. Then I heard Torres screaming. I stopped running. The creature had gone back for her. It was killing her slowly, and her screams echoed through the cave system like some kind of torture. I could keep running, save myself, get out of the mountains, and never come back. Or I could do what I should have done in Vietnam, what I should have done with my family. I could finish something for once in my life. I turned around and headed back toward the main chamber. When I got back to the main chamber, Torres was still alive, but just barely. The creature had carved symbols into the cave walls around her, using her blood as paint. The symbols looked old, primitive, like something from before written language. It was marking its territory, claiming its kill. The creature was waiting for me, sitting on its altar of skulls like some kind of prehistoric king. It had healed faster than should have been possible. The bullet wounds in its chest were already closing, and its eyes showed no damage from the flare. "You came back," it said in my voice. "I knew you would. You're not like the others, Gus. You're a killer too." "What are you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer wouldn't make sense. "I'm what was here before you," it replied. "Before your cities, before your machines, before your gods. This is my land, and you are trespassers." It stood up, and I could see the full size of it, 11 feet tall, but broader than any human, with arms that hung down to its knees. Its fingers ended in claws that looked like they could punch through steel. This wasn't just some unknown animal. This was something that had been evolving to hunt humans for thousands of years. "The Native Americans knew about me," it continued. "They left offerings, stayed out of my territory. They understood the rules, but you build your roads, cut down my forest, bring your loud machines into my home." I was backing toward Torres, trying to get to the detonator in her pack. "So you kill people. That's your solution." "I kill trespassers," it said. "I leave their bodies where others will find them, as warnings, but the warnings are ignored. More come, always more." These people were scientists. They were just studying the volcano. The creature laughed, and the sound was like grinding stone. Studying. They were poisoning the mountain with their machines, stealing pieces of my home. They had to be stopped. I reached Torres's pack and felt around for the detonator. She was barely conscious, but she grabbed my wrist. "The charges are set throughout the main chamber," she whispered. "Enough to bring down the whole ceiling, but you won't make it out." Neither will this thing, I said. The creature heard us talking and started moving toward us. It wasn't in a hurry. It knew we were trapped. I found the detonator, a small device with a red button under a protective cover. All I had to do was flip up the cover and press the button. You can't kill me, Gus, the creature said. I've survived for centuries. I've seen armies come and go, watched empires rise and fall. I am eternal. Maybe, I said, standing up with the detonator in my hand. But you're not bulletproof, and you're not explosion-proof. Let's see how eternal you really are. I flipped up the protective cover. The creature's eyes widened. It understood what I was holding. If you do this, you'll die too, it said. And for the first time, I heard something like fear in its voice. I've been dying for years, I told it. At least this way, it'll mean something. The creature moved then, faster than I'd ever seen it move before. But Torres, with her last bit of strength, threw herself at its legs. The creature stumbled, and I pressed the button. The explosion was like the end of the world. The charges Torres had planted throughout the chamber went off simultaneously, and the entire ceiling came down in a cascade of rock and fire. The creature's roar was cut short by tons of falling stone. I was thrown backward by the blast, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in a side tunnel, about 50 feet from the main chamber. The passage was blocked by fallen rock, but there was a gap near the ceiling where air was flowing through. I could see daylight on the other side. I was alive, somehow. Beaten to hell, probably had a concussion, but alive. My ribs were on fire where the creature had clawed me, and I could taste blood in my mouth. But I was breathing, and that was more than I'd expected. I could hear something moving in the rubble behind me. Something big, thrashing around under the rocks. The creature was still alive, but it was trapped. The explosion had brought down enough of the ceiling to pin it, but not enough to kill it. It was roaring, screaming, making sounds that no animal should be able to make. The sounds of something that had never known defeat, never known imprisonment, learning what it meant to be helpless. I crawled toward the gap in the rubble, toward the daylight. Behind me, the creature's roars grew fainter, but never stopped. It was trapped, maybe for years, maybe forever, but it was alive, and it knew my name. I made it out of the caves just as the sun was setting. The secondary exit was about 2 miles from where I'd parked my truck, and every step was agony. I was bleeding from a dozen cuts, and my head felt like someone had hit it with a sledgehammer, but I was alive. The official report blamed the deaths on volcanic activity, a sudden rock slide, they said, caused by seismic activity from the minor eruption. The bodies we recovered were too damaged to determine the real cause of death. Dr. Torres was listed as missing, presumed dead, buried under tons of rock. I never told anyone what really happened. Who would believe me? A drunk ranger with PTSD, claiming he fought a monster in a cave. They'd have locked me up or forced me into retirement. Maybe both, but I knew the truth. And sometimes, late at night when the wind was right, I could hear it, roaring from deep underground, calling my name in voices of the dead. It was still down there, still trapped, still angry. I retired 2 months later, took my pension, and moved to a cabin about 50 miles from the mountain. I told myself I was done with the forest, done with the mountains, done with whatever was lurking in those caves. But the creature had marked me, the same way it had marked its territory. I was connected to it now, and it was connected to me. The drinking got worse. I'd start every morning swearing I'd stay sober, and by noon I'd be reaching for the bottle. The whiskey helped quiet the dreams, helped me forget the sound of its voice using my words, but it never helped enough. Margaret came to see me once, about a year after the incident. She brought the twins, Emma and Sarah, 13 years old and beautiful. They were scared of me, of what I'd become. I was thin, unshaven, shaking from too much alcohol and too little sleep. "You look terrible, Gus," Margaret said. "What happened to you up there?" I wanted to tell her, wanted to explain why I jumped at every sound, why I kept all the lights on at night, why I couldn't sleep without the radio playing to drown out the silence. But how do you explain that you've seen the monster under the bed, and it knows your name? "Nothing," I said. "Just the job getting to me." She left that day, and I never saw her or the girls again. They moved to California, started a new life without the drunk ranger who used to be their father. I don't blame them. I'd have done the same thing. The creature is still down there. I know because people still go missing in the Ape Canyon area. Not often, maybe 1 or 2 a year. Hikers who wander off the trail, climbers who don't check in when they're supposed to. The Park Service blames it on the terrain, on people not being prepared for the wilderness. But I know better. The creature is still hunting, still protecting its territory. The rock slide didn't kill it, just slowed it down. It's learning new ways to move through the caves, new ways to reach the surface. And someday, maybe soon, it's going to get free. I've got maybe 6 months left before the liver gives out. The doctor says I should quit drinking, but we both know that's not going to happen. The whiskey is the only thing that keeps the nightmares at bay, the only thing that drowns out the sound of its voice calling my name. When I die, there won't be anyone left who knows the truth. The creature will have won, finally and completely. It will have outlasted everyone who stood against it, everyone who knew its secret. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe some secrets are meant to die with the people who carry them. Maybe the world is better off not knowing what's really out there in the deep forests, in the dark caves, in the places where humans were never meant to go. All I know is this: if you're ever hiking in the Mount St. Helens area, and you hear the forest go quiet, and you smell something musky and wild on the wind, you turn around and walk away. Don't investigate. Don't try to be brave. Just leave. Because some territories belong to things older and stronger than us, and some giants are better left sleeping. My name is Augustus Whitmore, and this is my confession. Do with it what you will. The whiskey is calling, and I'm tired of fighting. My name is Catherine Morrison, but everyone calls me Cat. I'm a park ranger in the Chippewa National Forest in Minnesota, and I need to tell you something that happened to me in 1985, something that still keeps me awake at night. People ask me why I left nursing to become a ranger. The truth is, I couldn't handle watching people die anymore. 3 years earlier, I was working at Minneapolis General when a fire broke out in the children's ward. I got most of the kids out, but I lost 4 of them. 4 little ones who trusted me to keep them safe. The scar on my left hand is from that night. Grabbed a burning door handle trying to reach the last room. After that, I couldn't stand being inside hospitals. The smell of disinfectant made me sick. The beeping machines sounded like funeral bells. So I moved up north, thinking nature would help me heal. Clean air, open spaces, no more death on my watch. I was wrong about that last part. The Forest Service stationed me near Leech Lake, about as far from civilization as you can get in Minnesota. My beat covered thousands of acres of wilderness, dense woods, frozen swamps, and old Native American burial grounds that the locals still whispered about. The Ojibwe people who lived here had stories about things that walked in the deep woods, things that were always hungry. Wendigo stories are just old wives' tales, I used to tell myself. Something to explain why people went crazy during long winters. I lived alone in a small cabin with my mother, who had dementia. Some days she knew me, some days she didn't. But she always knew when storms were coming. She'd get restless, pacing by the windows, muttering about the hungry ones walking. On February 14th, 1985, the worst blizzard in 30 years hit northern Minnesota. The Weather Service said temperatures would drop to 50 below zero, with winds up to 70 miles per hour. Smart people stayed inside, but at 2:47 in the morning, my radio crackled to life. Base, this is Wilderness Lodge. We have an emergency. The wedding party, they single quotes, Oh God, it's inside. It's eating them. The radio went dead. Wilderness Lodge was a fancy hunting retreat, about 15 miles into the forest. Rich people rented it for special occasions. A wedding party of 15. People had booked it for the weekend, a winter wonderland ceremony, they called it. Now they were trapped in the worst storm in decades, and something was wrong. Very wrong. My supervisor told me to wait until morning. Nobody goes out in this weather. Cat, it's suicide. But I kept thinking about those 4 kids in the hospital fire, about how I'd failed them. I couldn't fail again. I loaded my snowmobile with medical supplies and survival gear. My mother grabbed my arm as I headed for the door. "Don't go," she whispered, her eyes suddenly clear and focused. "The hungry one walks tonight. It's been waiting so long to feed." I thought it was just the dementia talking. I kissed her forehead and stepped into the storm. The wind hit me like a wall of ice. Snow swirled so thick I couldn't see 5 feet ahead. The cold burned my lungs with every breath, but I had to try. 15 people were counting on me. I fired up the snowmobile and headed into the whiteout, not knowing I was driving straight into a nightmare. The trip to Wilderness Lodge should have taken 45 minutes. It took me 3 hours. The blizzard was like nothing I'd ever seen. Snow didn't fall, it attacked, whipping horizontally across the trail in sheets of white fury. My snowmobile's headlight barely cut through the darkness. I had to stop every few minutes to wipe ice off my goggles and check my compass. Twice, the engine stalled for no reason. The third time, I noticed something strange. The snow around me had formed weird patterns, spirals and shapes that looked almost like reaching hands. The wind howled, but underneath it, I could swear I heard something else. Whispers, voices calling my name. Just the storm, I told myself, but my hands were shaking inside my gloves, and it wasn't from the cold. When I finally saw the lodges, lights through the snow, I felt a wave of relief. But as I got closer, that relief turned to dread. The building looked wrong. The windows were boarded up from the inside, and deep scratch marks ran down the exterior walls. They were too high to be from any animal I knew, and too wide to be from human hands. I parked the snowmobile and walked to the front door. It was locked, but I could hear sounds from inside, scraping, dragging, and something else that made my skin crawl a wet, tearing noise, like fabric being ripped apart. I pounded on the door. "Hello, Park Service. Is anyone in there?" The sound stopped. Complete silence. I tried the door handle, locked tight. I put my shoulder against it and pushed. The door was barricaded from the inside with furniture. I had to use my emergency axe to break it down. The smell hit me first. Copper and rot, and something else I couldn't name. Something that made my stomach turn, and my medical training scream warnings. I'd smelled death before, but this was different, older, hungrier. I stepped inside and swept my flashlight around the main room. My breath caught in my throat. The expensive furniture was arranged in a defensive circle. Couches, chairs, and tables stacked up like a fort. Blood splattered the walls in frozen patterns, dark red against the wood paneling. Drag marks led from the main room toward the basement stairs. In the center of the room, scattered across the floor, were the remains of a wedding, a torn white dress, blood-stained and frozen stiff, wedding rings glittering in my flashlight beam, a bridal bouquet encased in ice. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing in the empty space. "Is anyone alive?" A soft whimper came from the coat closet near the entrance. I rushed over and carefully opened the door. A young woman huddled inside, still wearing her wedding dress. Her blonde hair was matted with blood, and her blue eyes stared at nothing. She was shaking, but not from cold. The lodge was warm inside, heated by a roaring fire in the fireplace. "Hey," I said softly, kneeling down. "I'm Kat. I'm here to help. Are you hurt?" She looked at me with those empty eyes. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "The hungry man came. He made us hungry too. So hungry for each other." I checked her for injuries. Frostbite on her fingers and toes, but nothing life-threatening. Her pulse was weak and slow, too slow, and her skin was cold despite the warm room. "What's your name?" I asked, wrapping her in a blanket. "Emily," she said. "Emily Patterson. I just got married today. Where's David? Where's my husband?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I was pretty sure I knew where David was, and I didn't want to think about what had happened to him. "Emily, I need you to tell me what happened here. Where is everyone else?" She grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Her fingers were like ice through my jacket. "He came during the ceremony, so tall, so thin, and so hungry. He said he'd been waiting in the cold for so long, and we looked so warm, so full." "Who came?" "Emily, the starving man. He touched us, and we got hungry too. Hungry for meat, hungry for each other." She smiled then, and I saw that her teeth were stained with blood. "Are you hungry, Kat? You look so warm." I backed away from her, my hand moving to the radio on my belt. But when I tried to call for backup, I got nothing but static. The storm was interfering with the signal. That's when I heard it. A sound, from the basement. Footsteps, but not normal footsteps. Something heavy dragging across the floor. Emily's head snapped toward the sound. "He's awake," she whispered. "He's still hungry." The temperature in the room suddenly dropped. My breath came out in visible puffs. Frost began forming on the walls, and from the basement came a sound I'll never forget. A voice, but not human. Deep and hollow and ancient, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. But somehow, I understood what it was saying. It was describing how each of the wedding guests had tasted. I grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the door. We're leaving now. But she dug in her heels, stronger than any hypothermia victim should be. We can't leave. He's not finished eating yet. The basement door creaked open. The dragging sound got louder, closer. Something was coming up the stairs. I let go of Emily and ran for the front door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. The boards I'd broken fell back into place by themselves. The windows that had been boarded up from the inside were now covered with ice so thick I couldn't see through them. We were trapped. "Emily, we need to hide," I whispered. But when I turned around, she was gone. A child's giggle echoed from the basement. Then an old man's voice called out, Cat Morrison, we've been waiting for you." I knew that voice. It was Mr. Henderson, one of the wedding guests. But Mr. Henderson was dead. I could smell his corpse from here. More voices joined in. The bride's mother, the groom's father, all 8, the people who should have been celebrating love and life, now calling to me with dead throats. "Come downstairs, Cat. We want to show you something." I pressed my back against the door and tried to think. In nursing school, they taught us to stay calm in emergencies, assess the situation, make a plan. But they never covered what to do when dead people start talking to you. The voices stopped. The lodge fell silent except for the wind outside. Then I heard Emily singing. She was back in the main room, standing by the fireplace. The wedding dress hung in tatters around her thin frame. She'd lost weight since I'd found her in the closet. A lot of weight. Her skin was stretched tight over her bones, and her eyes had gone from blue to yellow. "Here comes the bride," she sang in a voice like breaking glass, all dressed in white. "Emily, what happened to you?" She smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. I got hungry, so hungry, and there was so much meat walking around. The basement door opened wider. I saw shapes moving in the darkness down there, shapes that might have been human once. "The starving man shared his gift with us," Emily continued, "the gift of endless hunger, and now we want to share it with you." She took a step toward me. Her movements were wrong, too fast, too fluid, like a predator stalking prey. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't turn. The metal was so cold it burned my palm. "You can't leave," Emily said. "Not until you've tasted what we've tasted, not until you understand what it means to be truly hungry." Something huge moved in the basement doorway. A shadow that was too tall, too thin, too wrong to be human. It spoke in that same hollow voice, but this time in English. "Catherine Morrison, I know you. I've been watching you. You carry death with you wherever you go. Those children in the fire. Your patients who died despite your care. You're already hungry, aren't you? Hungry for absolution." I was shaking, now, and not from the cold. How did it know about the fire? How did it know about the children? "I can give you what you want," the thing continued. "I can make the hunger stop. All you have to do is feed." Emily was getting closer. I could see her ribs through her skin. Her fingernails had grown into claws. "Just one bite," she whispered. "Just one taste of warm meat. Then you'll understand. Then you'll be free." I grabbed a poker from the fireplace and swung it at her. She dodged easily, laughing like a child playing a game. "You can't hurt me," she said. "I'm already dead. We're all already dead. But we're still so hungry." The thing in the basement started climbing the stairs. Each step made the whole lodge shake. As it got closer, the temperature dropped even more. Ice formed on the inside. Of the windows, my breath came out in clouds. I could see it now. 12 feet tall, impossibly thin, with skin like old leather stretched over bones. Its eyes were holes in its skull, and its mouth was full of teeth like broken glass. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing I'd ever seen. "Hello, Catherine," it said. "I've been so lonely, so hungry, for so long." Emily lunged at me with her claws, but I was ready. I'd had enough of being afraid. I'd had enough of people dying on my watch. I swung the poker like a baseball bat and caught her in the ribs. She flew across the room and hit the wall hard enough to crack the wood, but she got back up, still smiling. "You can't win," she said. "You can't fight the hunger forever. It's already inside you. I can smell it." And she was right. I could feel it growing in my stomach. An emptiness that had nothing to do with food. A craving for something I couldn't name. The tall thing reached the top of the stairs. When it stepped into the firelight, I saw what it really was. It had been human once, maybe centuries ago, but hunger had changed it into something else. Something that fed on more than just flesh. "I am the Wendigo," it said. I am the hunger that walks. I am the winter that never ends. And you, Catherine Morrison, are mine. The Wendigo's presence filled the room like smoke. Everywhere it looked, frost spread across the walls. The fire in the fireplace sputtered and died, plunging us into darkness except for the pale glow of its eyes. Look at me, it commanded, and I couldn't help but obey. In those hollow sockets, I saw the truth. This thing had been human once, a person who'd been trapped in winter, starving, driven to eat human flesh to survive. But the act had changed him, cursed him, made him into something that could never be satisfied, no matter how much it consumed. I was like you, it whispered. I tried to save people. I was a doctor in the logging camps 100 years ago. When the blizzard came, when the food ran out, I held on longer than the others. I watched them die one by one, and when I finally broke, it gestured at itself, with arms like tree branches. This is what mercy gets you. This is what caring gets you. Eternal hunger. Emily circled me like a wolf, her wedding dress trailing behind her. He's teaching us to let go, she said, to stop fighting the hunger, to embrace it. Where are the others? I asked. The rest of the wedding party. The Wendigo smiled, showing those broken glass teeth. They're safe. They're with me. They're part of me now. I understood then. The voices I'd heard, the shapes in the basement, they weren't separate people anymore. They were pieces of the creature, fragments of souls it had absorbed. And soon, it continued, you'll join them. You'll stop carrying that guilt. You'll stop trying to save everyone. You'll just ... feed. The hunger in my stomach was getting stronger. I found myself looking at Emily and thinking about how warm she'd be inside, how much protein was in human muscle, how good it would taste. I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts. This was wrong. This was evil. But the hunger kept growing. Fight it all you want, the Wendigo said. But I can smell your guilt. I can taste your desperation. You've been hungry for forgiveness for years. I'm offering it to you. Emily moved closer. Just one bite. Cat. One taste. Then all the pain stops. I was losing the battle. The hunger was too strong. My hand reached toward Emily's throat. Her skin looked so warm, so alive. But then I remembered something. In nursing school, they taught us about hypothermia, how the body shuts down to preserve core temperature, how victims sometimes feel warm right before they die. Emily wasn't warm. She was freezing, just like the Wendigo, just like everything the creature touched. You're not offering me food, I said. You're offering me death. The Wendigo's eyes flared. They're the same thing. Food is death. Death is food. The cycle never ends. Maybe not, I said, but I'm not going to be part of it. I reached into my medical bag and pulled out a flare. Emergency signal, bright as the sun. I cracked it and threw it at the Wendigo. The creature screamed and stumbled backward. Its flesh started smoking. Where the light hit it, Emily shrieked and covered her eyes. Fire, I whispered. You hate fire. I ran to the kitchen and found the propane tank for the stove. The lodge had a whole setup for cooking, industrial-grade equipment with plenty of fuel. I grabbed a pot, filled it with cooking oil, and lit it on fire. The Wendigo was recovering from the flare, but I could see fear in its hollow eyes. You can't destroy me, it said. I am eternal. I am winter itself. Maybe, I said, advancing, with the burning oil, but you're still afraid of fire, and that tells me you can die. Emily tried to stop me, but I threw the oil at her. She went up like a candle, screaming as the flames ate through her wedding dress. The sound was horrible, but when she burned, something else burned with her, something dark and hungry that had been wrapped around her soul. For just a moment, her eyes turned blue again. Thank you, she whispered. Then she was gone. The Wendigo roared and charged at me. I dove aside and grabbed another pot of oil. The creature was fast, but the fire made it clumsy. It kept backing away from the flames, hissing like a snake. You don't understand, it said. I'm saving you. I'm saving everyone. The hunger is all there is. The hunger is truth. No, I said. Love is truth. Sacrifice is truth. You're just a parasite that feeds on pain. I threw the second pot of oil at it. The Wendigo caught fire like dry wood. It screamed and thrashed, but the flames spread quickly. As it burned, I could see shapes moving inside it, the souls of everyone it had consumed, finally free. They looked at me with grateful eyes before they faded away. David, the groom, Emily's parents, the wedding guests, all of them at peace. At last, the Wendigo kept burning, but it wasn't dying fast enough. The fire was spreading to the lodge itself. I had to get out. I ran to the front door and put my shoulder against it. The ice was melting from the heat, and the boards fell away. I burst outside into the blizzard. Behind me, Wilderness Lodge went up in flames. The Wendigo's death scream echoed across the forest, so loud it started an avalanche that buried the back half of the building. I made it to my snowmobile and got it started. As I drove away, I looked back once. The fire was visible even through the snow, a pillar of light in the darkness, but I could still feel the hunger inside me, growing, waiting. The official report said, carbon monoxide poisoning killed the wedding party. Faulty heating system, poor ventilation, tragic accident. The lodge burned down due to an electrical fire. During the storm, no survivors. I didn't argue. Who would believe the truth? But I knew what really happened. And I knew it wasn't over. The hunger the Wendigo had planted in me didn't go away. It grew stronger every day. I stopped eating meat, terrified of what I might crave next. I lost weight, lost sleep, lost pieces of myself. I couldn't stay in Minnesota. Every time I looked at the forest, I saw hollow eyes watching me from the shadows. Every time the temperature dropped, I felt that ancient hunger stirring. So I transferred to Arizona. Desert duty, no snow, no winter, no frozen forests where things that should be dead could walk and hunt. But sometimes, on cold nights, I still hear it calling. The Wendigo's voice carried on the wind, promising me peace if I just give in to the hunger. Promising me that I don't have to carry the weight of everyone I couldn't save. I've been fighting it for 40 years now. Some days are easier than others. Some days I almost forget what happened in that lodge. But I never forget the lesson. There are things in this world that feed on more than flesh. Things that consume guilt and pain, and the parts of us that make us human. Things that offer easy answers to impossible questions. The Wendigo is dead. I killed it, but there are others like it out there. Other hungry things walking in the dark places of the world. Other people who tried to save everyone and broke under the weight of their failures. I'm telling you this story because I'm getting old. Because the hunger is getting stronger. Because someday soon, I might not be able to fight it anymore. If that happens, if you hear about a park ranger in Arizona who went missing in the desert, who was found days later in a condition that doesn't make sense, just remember what I told you. Remember that hunger is patient, that it can wait years, decades, centuries for the right moment to strike, that it feeds on our best intentions and our worst fears. And remember that sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them go. My name is Catherine Morrison. I'm 73 years old. I've saved more people than I've lost, but I'm still hungry, and it's getting harder to remember why that's wrong. My name is Robert Castellano, but everyone calls me Bobby. I've been a park ranger for 6 years now, working the Chequamegon National Forest in Wisconsin. Before that, I spent 8 years on the Chicago PD. I traded my badge and gun for a different kind of badge and gun after I shot an unarmed kid during a traffic stop. The kid lived, but something in me died that night. I came to the forest looking for peace. Maria, my fiancée, thinks I'm running from my problems. Maybe she's right. We're supposed to get married next spring, but lately, I wonder if I'll ever be ready to stop running. The Flambeau River cuts through my section of the forest like a silver snake. Dense woods stretch for miles in every direction, broken only by old logging roads and abandoned camps from the timber days. Most folks stick to the main trails, but I know every deer path and hidden creek. It's quiet here, safe, at least. That's what I used to think. My specialty is law enforcement liaison. I handle the poachers and illegal hunters who think federal land is their personal playground. I've seen what people do to each other in the city, but what I found in those woods wasn't human. It started on a Tuesday morning in early October. The leaves were just turning, painting the forest in reds and golds. I was at the ranger station, filling out paperwork and drinking coffee that tasted like motor oil, when the phone rang. Forest Service. This is Bobby, thank God. The voice was high and shaky. This is Jim Morrison. I'm the scoutmaster for Troop 847 out of Milwaukee. We've got boys missing. My coffee mug hit the desk. Slow down, sir. Tell me what happened. We were camping near Bear Creek. 3 boys didn't come back from a night hike. That was yesterday evening. We searched all night, but ... double quotes, his voice cracked. We found something else. Something terrible. I was already grabbing my gear. Where are you now? Mile marker 12, on Forest Road 178. Please, hurry. There's something wrong with this place. The animals are acting crazy. Yesterday we saw wolves, but they were huge, big. As bears, the lion went dead. I'd worked missing person cases in Chicago. Kids disappear for lots of reasons, most of them bad. But this felt different. The fear in that man's voice wasn't just worry, it was pure terror. The drive to Bear Creek took 20 minutes on winding dirt roads. I found the scout camp in chaos. 20 boys between 12 and 16 huddled around a dying fire, while 3 adult leaders stood guard with hunting rifles. They looked like they hadn't slept in days. Jim Morrison was a thin man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He'd met me at my truck, and I could see his hands shaking. The boys went out around 6 p.m. yesterday. He said, Tommy Chen, Jason Miller, and David Rodriguez, all good kids. They know the woods. They should have been back by 8. And you found something. His face went pale. Follow me. We walked 50 yards from camp to a small clearing. That's where I saw Bill Hendricks. Bill was another scoutmaster, a big man who'd been camping these woods for 20 years. What was left of him was spread across 10 feet of forest floor. His arms were torn off. His chest was ripped open. His head was twisted completely around. But the wounds weren't made by any animal I knew. The bite marks were too big, the claw marks too wide, and there was something else the way the body was positioned. It looked deliberate, like a warning. Jesus, I whispered. Gets worse, Jim said. Look at the trees. The bark on 3 large oaks was shredded 8 feet off the ground, deep gouges that would take incredible strength to make. And there was a smell in the air, musky, wild, but with something else underneath. Something that made my skin crawl. I knelt beside Bill's body, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. In Chicago, I'd worked gang killings, drug executions, domestic violence cases. I knew what human violence looked like. This wasn't it. What kind of wolves did you see? I asked. Jim's voice was barely a whisper. They walked on their hind legs. I radioed for backup and the coroner, then started organizing the search. The missing boys were my priority. Bill Hendricks was beyond help. The first thing I noticed was the tracks. Normal wolf prints are about 4 inches long. These were 7 inches deep in the soft earth around the creek. But here's what made my blood run cold. 50 feet from the body, the paw prints changed into human footprints. Not like someone had stepped in the tracks. Like the same creature had shifted from 4 legs to 2. I followed the trail deeper, into the woods, my service weapon drawn. The forest was too quiet. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering. Even the insects had gone silent. After 6 years in these woods, I knew that was wrong. The trail led to a game path that wound through thick pine groves. Every 100 yards or so, I found more claw marks on trees. They were fresh, the sap still bleeding, and they were getting bigger. That's when I heard it, a low howl that started like a wolf, but ended almost human. It came from 3 directions at once. Whatever was out there, it wasn't alone. I'd been tracking for 2 hours when I found the first boy. Tommy Chen was 12 years old, small for his age, with black hair and serious eyes behind thick glasses. I found him wedged inside a hollow fallen log, barely conscious and covered in scratches. His Boy Scout uniform was shredded, but he was alive. Tommy, I knelt beside the log. It's okay. I'm a ranger. You're safe now. His eyes focused on me. With difficulty, they're not wolves, he whispered. They look like people, but they move like wolves. And they talk. Who talks? Son, the dogmen. They stood up and talked to each other, but not with words. I could hear them in my head. I lifted him out of the log as gently as I could. He was dehydrated and in shock, but not seriously injured. Just scared out of his mind. Where are Jason and David? They got Jason. His voice was flat, emotionless. They took David somewhere else. They said they were saving him for later. That's when I noticed Tommy's watch had stopped. The digital display showed 7:43 p.m., exactly when the boys had gone missing. I checked my own watch and radio. Both were working fine. Tommy, I need you to stay with me. Can you do that? He nodded, but his eyes kept darting to the trees around. Us, they're still out there, watching us. I felt it too, the sensation of being hunted. The hair on my arms stood up. Something was tracking us through the forest, staying just out of sight. We made it back to camp without incident, but the feeling of being watched never left. I got Tommy medical attention and radioed for a full search team. As the sun started to set, I realized I had maybe 2 hours of daylight left. That's when I found Jason Miller. The 14-year-old was hanging 15 feet up in a white pine, his body wedged between two branches. His legs were gone, torn off at the hips, but he was still breathing. "Help me," he whispered as I climbed up to him. "Please don't let them come back." I got him down and tried to stop the bleeding, but we both knew it was too late. He was dying, and he knew it. "What did this to you, Jason?" "The pack," he said, his voice getting weaker. "6 of them. Big as men, but shaped like wolves. They hunt together. They plan. The big one. He's smart, scary smart. Where's David?" "Cave system, north of here. They're keeping him alive. For the Alpha." His eyes were getting glassy. "They don't just kill, they enjoy it. They played with me before." Jason Miller died in my arms as the sun touched the horizon. A good kid who'd been torn apart by something that shouldn't exist. I closed his eyes and made him a promise. "I'll find David, and I'll make them pay." That's when I heard them howling, not one voice, but 6, calling to each other across the darkening forest. The hunt was about to begin. The pack was coordinated. As darkness fell, they moved like a military unit, communicating through howls and some kind of telepathic link that Tommy had described. I could hear them circling the camp, staying just beyond the firelight. I'd radioed for backup, but the nearest units were 3 hours away. It was just me, 3 terrified adults, and 20 scared kids between the pack and whatever they wanted. The first attack came at midnight. I was checking the perimeter when I heard screaming from the camp. Something had grabbed 16-year-old Marcus Webb and dragged him into the tree line. By the time I got there, all I found was his torn jacket and blood on the pine needles. "They're testing us," I told Jim Morrison, "seeing how we react." "Testing us for what?" "To see if we're worth hunting." The pack was smart. They cut our generator line, killing our electric lights. They threw rocks at our vehicles, shattering windows and headlights. They made noise all around us, keeping everyone awake and on edge. But they didn't attack again. Not yet. I used my police training to analyze what I was seeing. The pack had a clear hierarchy, with one alpha male calling the shots. They were territorial, marking trees and leaving scent trails, and they were patient hunters, willing to wait for the perfect moment to strike. At 3 a.m., I found Marcus Webb's body. They'd hung him upside down from a tree branch, his throat torn out. But that wasn't the worst part. They'd arranged his body to face our camp, like he was watching us, like a warning. That's when I understood. This wasn't random predation. It was personal. The pack had chosen us as their prey, and they were going to take their time. I sent out a patrol at first light with 2 of the adult leaders. We found David Rodriguez's trail leading north toward the limestone caves that honeycombed the area. The tracks were clear, 6 sets of massive paw prints escorting 1 set of small human footprints. The caves were perfect for what they were doing. Dozens of interconnected chambers, multiple entrances, and easy to defend. If David was still alive, that's where they'd taken him. I made a decision that went against everything I'd learned in Chicago. I was going in alone. "You can't do this," Jim Morrison said as I checked my gear. "Call for backup. Wait for the cavalry." That boy doesn't have time for backup. I had my service weapon, extra ammunition, and emergency supplies. I also had something else, 6 silver bullets that had belonged to my grandfather. He'd been a hunter in the old country, and he'd always said silver was for things that regular bullets couldn't kill. I'd thought it was just old-world superstition. Now I wasn't so sure. The cave system was 3 miles north of camp, hidden in a rocky outcrop covered with thick brush. I found the main entrance easily enough. It was marked with claw marks and that musky smell that made my skin crawl. The first chamber was empty except for bones. Lots of bones. Deer, elk, and some that looked disturbingly human. The pack had been using this place for a long time. I followed the main passage deeper into the cave system, using a flashlight to navigate. The walls were covered with more claw marks, and the smell was getting stronger. Somewhere ahead, I could hear voices, not howls. Human voices speaking in a language I didn't recognize. I crept forward until I reached a large chamber lit by torches. That's where I got my first good look at the pack. They were 7 feet tall, covered in dark grey fur, with the heads of wolves and the bodies of men. They walked upright on powerful hind legs, their front paws ending in claws like knives. 6 of them stood in a circle around a bound figure. In the center of the chamber, David Rodriguez was alive, but terrified. The 13-year-old was tied to a wooden post, his clothes torn but his body unmarked. They were saving him for something special. The largest creature stood apart from the others, 8 feet tall, with silver streaks in his black fur and scars, covering his massive frame. The alpha male. He was studying David like a farmer, examining livestock. That's when the alpha's head turned toward my hiding spot. His yellow eyes met mine across the chamber, and I saw intelligence there. Not animal cunning, but human-level thought and planning. He smiled, showing teeth like railroad spikes. "We've been waiting for you, Ranger," he said in perfect English. "Welcome to our home." The pack surrounded me before I could retreat. They moved with impossible speed, cutting off every escape route. I drew my weapon, but the alpha male just laughed. "Silver bullets," he said, somehow knowing what I was thinking. "Your grandfather taught you well. But 6 bullets against 6 of us. Poor odds." "Let the boy go," I said, keeping my gun trained on the alpha's chest. "This is between us." "Oh, but it's not." The alpha began to circle me, his pack following his lead. "You killed our brother last month, the young one who got careless near your ranger station." I remembered the incident. A massive wolf had been attacking campers, and I'd shot it in self-defense. The body had been gone when I came back with backup. He was learning to hunt humans. The alpha continued. "You ended his education permanently. Now we're going to end yours." The pack attacked all at once. I got off 3 shots before they reached me. The silver bullets worked 2 pack members, dropped with howls of pain, but the others hit me like a freight train, driving me to the cave floor. Claws raked across my back, teeth snapped inches from my throat. I rolled away from one attacker and put a 4th bullet into his chest. He went down hard, but the others kept coming. The alpha male grabbed me by the throat and lifted me off the ground. His grip was like a steel vice. "You taste like fear," he said, his breath hot against my face. "I'm going to enjoy this." That's when David Rodriguez broke free from his bonds. The boy had been working at the ropes while the pack was distracted. He grabbed one of the torches and shoved it into the alpha's face. The creature roared and dropped me, clawing at his burned eyes. "Run!" I shouted, but David was already moving. I put my 5th bullet into the alpha's chest. He staggered, but didn't go down. Silver slowed them, but it didn't stop them easily. I needed headshots. The remaining pack members were between me and the exit. 2 healthy adults, 1 wounded, and the alpha male who was recovering from his burns. David was trapped with me. In the back of the chamber, behind me, I told the boy, "Stay close." The alpha's vision was clearing. He looked at me with pure hatred. "You cannot win," he said. "We are faster, stronger, and we heal. You are just a frightened human with 1 bullet left." He was right about the 1 bullet, but he was wrong about me being frightened. I'd been afraid in Chicago when I shot that unarmed kid. I'd been afraid every day since, wondering if I'd hesitate at the wrong moment. But looking at David Rodriguez, a 13-year-old boy who'd shown more courage than most adults, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. The pack charged as one. I waited until the alpha was 3 feet away, then put my last silver bullet right between his eyes. The effect was immediate. The alpha's skull exploded, and he dropped like a stone. The rest of the pack stopped mid-charge, howling in grief and rage. Without their leader, they were just animals. Dangerous animals, but animals nonetheless. I grabbed David's hand and ran for the exit. The pack followed, but they were confused and uncoordinated. We made it to the main passage before they organized themselves enough to give chase. "Can you run?" I asked David. "Yes, sir." "Then let's go home." We ran through the forest as the sun came up, the surviving pack members howling behind us. But without their alpha, they'd lost their purpose. They were already dispersing, heading deeper into the wilderness. By the time we reached the camp, it was over. The official report blamed the deaths on a bear attack. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources backed up my story, and the families of the victims were compensated. The boys who survived were given counseling and told to never speak about what they'd really seen. David Rodriguez spent 3 months in therapy before he could sleep through the night. Tommy Chen's family moved to California. The other scouts were transferred to different troops. Everyone involved agreed to never discuss the incident. I was offered a commendation for heroism. I turned it down. The pack was broken, but I knew they were still out there. Over the next few months, I monitored reports of unusual animal attacks across the Great Lakes region. The pattern was always the same: coordinated hunts, impossible bite marks, and witnesses who described wolves that walked like men. My engagement to Maria ended 6 months later. I couldn't tell her why I'd changed, and she couldn't understand why I'd become afraid of dogs. Any dogs, even puppies, made me break out in a cold sweat. I requested a transfer to desk duty and spent my days filing reports and answering phones. At night, I researched folklore and mythology, trying to understand what I'd encountered. The old European stories were surprisingly consistent: werewolves, shapeshifters, the children of wolves and men. My grandfather's silver bullets had worked, but silver was rare and expensive. I started carrying a silver-plated knife instead, just in case. 3 years later, I got a call from a ranger in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. 3 hunters had gone missing near Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. The only survivor was babbling about dogmen and wolves that talked. I told him I'd be right there. The pack was broken, but the bloodline survived. Somewhere in the deep woods, they were still hunting, still learning, still growing stronger, and I was still the only one who knew they were real. My name is Bobby Castellano, and I've seen what people do to each other in the city. But what I found in those woods wasn't human. It was something older, something hungrier, and something that will never stop hunting. The alpha is dead, but the pack endures, and so do I. My name is Michael O'Sullivan, and I need to tell you something that happened to me in 1976. Something that changed everything I thought I knew about the world. People call me Mick. I'm a park ranger at Joshua Tree National Park in California. Been doing this job for 13 years now. Before that, I was a Marine in Vietnam. Saw things there that would make most people lose their minds. But what I found in that desert cave was something from a deeper hell than anything I'd seen in war. I'm 38 years old, 6'1", with graying hair and a face that's been beaten up by too much sun and too many hard years. I wear my rosary around my neck every day. Got it from my mother before I shipped out to Vietnam. My wife used to tease me about it, said I looked like a tough guy trying to be holy. She died in a car accident 5 years ago, left me raising our daughter Jenny all alone. She's 8 now, smart as a whip, and the only good thing left in my life. I became a ranger to get away from the city, from the violence, from the memories. Out here in the desert, with all these massive rocks and endless sky, I found something like peace. I'm good at my job: desert survival, rock climbing, cave rescue. The other rangers call me when someone gets lost or hurt in the hard places. I've pulled more than 200 people out of caves and off cliffs, never lost one. Yet, the thing about being a Catholic and a Marine is that you learn to believe in things you can't see, but you also learn to trust what you can touch and hold. I believed in God, sure, but demons, that was just old world superstition. Something my grandmother used to scare me with when I was acting up as a kid. A Marine doesn't worry about monsters in the dark. We worry about the enemy you can shoot. I should have listened to my grandmother. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. The desert was still hot, but not the killer heat of summer. I was drinking coffee in the ranger station when the call came in. A geology team from UC Berkeley had been studying mineral formations near Skull Rock. That's a famous spot in the park where the rocks look like, well, a skull. They were supposed to check in by radio every 12 hours. They'd missed their last 2 calls. The team leader was Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a tough lady who'd been coming to Joshua Tree for years. She knew the desert, knew the risks. If she wasn't answering her radio, something was wrong. I loaded up my truck with water, medical supplies, and climbing gear. The drive to Skull Rock takes about 30 minutes from the ranger station, winding through some of the most beautiful and deadly landscape in America. Giant boulders stack up like ancient castles, creating mazes of rocks and hidden valleys. It's easy to get lost, easy to get hurt, easy to die if you don't know what you're doing. But as I drove that morning, something felt different. The desert animals were acting strange. I saw 3 separate groups of coyotes heading away from Skull Rock, moving fast like they were running from something. Birds were flying in the wrong direction too, away from their normal feeding grounds. In 13 years of working this desert, I'd never seen anything like it. The air felt heavy, like before a thunderstorm, except there wasn't a cloud in the sky. My truck's radio started crackling with static the closer I got to Skull Rock. By the time I reached the geology team's camp, the radio was nothing but noise. That should have been my first warning to turn around and call for backup. But I was a Marine, and Marines don't run from static on the radio. The geology team's camp was a disaster. 3 tents collapsed, equipment scattered everywhere, papers blowing around in the wind. But there was no wind that day. The air was still as death. I called out for Dr. Hendricks, for anyone, but got no answer. Just my own voice echoing off the rocks. I walked through the camp, trying to figure out what happened. It looked like they'd left in a hurry, or maybe something had torn through the place. But there were no tire tracks, no footprints, nothing to show where they'd gone. Their research notes were scattered around the campfire, but something was wrong with them. The papers were burned around the edges, like they'd been too close to intense heat. But the fire pit was cold, had been cold for hours. I picked up one. Of the papers, it was a geological survey of the cave system behind Skull Rock. Someone had drawn circles around several cave entrances, with notes about unusual heat signatures and electromagnetic anomalies. The temperature was all wrong too. My truck's thermometer read 95 degrees, normal for October, but the ground near the camp was too hot to touch. I could feel the heat through my boots. When I knelt down and put my hand near the dirt, it was like holding it over a stove burner. I followed the scattered equipment toward the rock formations. The geology team had been studying a series of caves that went deep into the hillside. I'd been in those caves before, on rescue missions. They were just normal desert caves, nothing special about them. But now they felt different, wrong. The smell hit me first, sulfur like rotten eggs, but stronger. It was coming from inside the caves, thick and choking. I'd smelled sulfur before in Vietnam, from explosives and chemical weapons. This was different. This was old sulfur, like it had been cooking in the earth for thousands of years. My flashlight started flickering as I got closer to the cave entrance. The battery was fresh, but the light kept getting dimmer. My compass was spinning like a top. Couldn't find north. Even my watch had stopped working. That's when I found Dr. Hendricks. She was lying just inside the cave entrance, maybe 20 feet from daylight. At first, I thought she was just unconscious, maybe overcome by gas from the caves. I called her name, ran to her, started checking for a pulse. She was dead, had been dead for hours. But here's the thing that still gives me nightmares. She looked fine from the outside. No cuts, no broken bones, no sign of injury. Her clothes weren't even torn. But when I tried to move her, she was burning hot. Not fever hot, hot like she'd been cooked from the inside out. I've seen a lot of dead bodies in my time. War, accidents, people who got lost in the desert. But I'd never seen anything like this. It was like someone had turned on a fire inside her and burned her up from within, leaving the outside untouched. I should have run then, should have gotten back to my truck and called for help. But I was a Marine, and Marines don't leave people behind. There were 3 other people on that geology team, and I had to find them. I went deeper into the cave. The sulfur smell got stronger with every step. The walls were hot to the touch, and my flashlight kept getting dimmer. I was following a trail of disturbed dirt and small rocks, like someone had been dragged deeper into the cave system. The trail led down a narrow passage that opened into a bigger chamber. That's where I found the second body. Dr. James Park was hanging in the air, about 5 feet off the ground, like he was suspended by invisible wires. His arms were spread wide, his head thrown back, and he was completely white, not pale white, like every drop of blood had been drained from his body. But there was no blood on the ground, no wounds on his body, just a man hanging in the air, white as paper, in a cave where no one could possibly hang anything. I stood there, staring at him, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The laws of physics said he should fall. Gravity said he should drop to the cave floor. But he just hung there, swaying slightly, like he was underwater. That's when I heard the voice. Marine. It came from deeper in the cave, echoing off the walls. A man's voice, but wrong somehow. Too deep, too hollow, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. We've been waiting for you, Marine. I pulled out my service revolver, a .38 special I'd carried since Vietnam. My hands were shaking, and I hated myself for it. Marines don't shake. Who's there? I called out. Show yourself. The laughter that came back made my blood freeze. It wasn't human laughter. It was the sound of something that had forgotten how to be human but remembered how to hate. Come deeper, Marine. Come see what we've prepared for you. I should have run. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get out of that cave, to get back to the sunlight and the normal world. But I'm stubborn, and I'm a Marine, and there was still one more person missing from the geology team. Lisa Zhang was a graduate student, 22 years old, working on her master's degree. She had her whole life ahead of her. I couldn't leave her in that cave with whatever was making that horrible laughter. I moved deeper into the cave system, following the sound of that voice. My flashlight was barely working now, throwing just enough light to see a few feet ahead. The walls were covered in pictures, not paintings, but burned into the rock itself. Pictures of people screaming, of creatures with wings and claws, of things I didn't want to look at too closely. These weren't the normal Native American petroglyphs you see in desert caves. These were new, fresh, like they'd been burned into the rock recently, and they were moving. I swear to God, they were moving. The figures in the pictures writhed and twisted when I wasn't looking directly at them. The passage opened into a huge chamber, bigger than any cave I'd ever seen in Joshua Tree. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above me, and the floor was covered in a layer of ash that felt warm under my feet. In the center of the chamber was a crack in the wall, about 6 feet tall and maybe 3 feet wide. Light was coming from the crack, not normal light, but red light, like looking into a furnace. Lisa Zhang was sitting in front of the crack, her back to me. She was alive, thank God, but something was wrong with the way she was sitting. Too still, too straight, like a statue. Lisa, I called out. Are you okay? She turned around, and I saw her face. It was Lisa, but it wasn't Lisa. Her eyes were completely black, no white showing at all. When she smiled, her teeth were too sharp, too many of them, and when she spoke, it wasn't her voice. Hello, Marine. We've been waiting for you. That's when I realized what was happening. The thing that had been calling to me wasn't a person. It was inside Lisa, wearing her like a suit of clothes. We are the guardians of the portal, she said in that voice that wasn't hers. We have been waiting so long for it to open fully, so long for our brothers to join us in your world. I raised my gun, but I couldn't shoot. It was still Lisa's face, still her body. Whatever was inside her, she might still be in there somewhere. Let her go, I said. Take me instead. The thing wearing Lisa's face laughed, and the sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Oh, Marine, you still don't understand. We don't want to trade. We want to collect. All of you. Your world is so much warmer than ours, so much more alive. We've been trapped in the cold dark for centuries, but now the portal is strong enough. Now we can come through. Behind Lisa, the crack in the wall was getting bigger. The red light was getting brighter, and I could see shapes moving on the other side, shadows that looked like people but moved all wrong. Your friends, the rock diggers, made it possible, the thing said. All their drilling and measuring and taking samples, they weakened the walls between worlds, made it easier for us to push through. I could feel my rosary burning against my chest. Not painful burning, but warm, like it was trying to tell me something. I remembered what my grandmother used to say about evil things being afraid of holy objects. It seemed crazy, but everything about this was crazy. I pulled out my rosary with my free hand, held it up like a shield. The thing wearing Lisa's face hissed and stepped back. For just a second, I saw Lisa's real eyes looking at me, scared and pleading. Help me, she whispered in her own voice. It's been inside me for hours. I can't fight it much longer. Then the black eyes came back, and the thing was in control again. Your trinkets won't save you, Marine. They won't save any of you. Soon we'll have an army on this side, and your world will burn. That's when I heard the sounds from the portal. Scratching, clawing, something trying to push through from the other side. The crack was getting wider, and I could see more shapes moving in the red light. Whatever was coming through, I had to stop it. Even if it meant shooting Lisa. Even if it meant I never made it out of this cave alive. I raised my gun and pointed it at the crack in the wall. Let her go, or I'll collapse this whole damn cave. The thing laughed again. You'll only make it easier for us, Marine. Rockfalls won't stop us. Nothing will stop us. But I noticed something when I pointed my gun at the portal. The thing stepped in front of it, like it was protecting something. Like maybe it could be hurt after all. Lisa's real voice came back for just a moment. The portal, she whispered. It's not just a doorway. It's alive. It's feeding on us, growing stronger. If you destroy it. The black eyes took over again, and the thing snarled at me. But I'd heard enough. The portal wasn't just a way through. It was a living thing, and it needed to feed to stay open. That's why the geology team was dead. That's why Lisa was possessed. The portal was using them to make itself stronger. If I could kill the portal, maybe I could save her. Maybe I could save us all. I've faced enemy soldiers, survived watched friends die in my arms. But nothing in Vietnam prepared me for what came through that portal. The crack in the wall split wide open with a sound like the earth breaking apart. The red light blazed out, so bright I had to shield my eyes, and through the light came things that had once been human but weren't anymore. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with skin like charcoal and wings like bats. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness, and when they moved, they left trails of fire. In the air, there were 5 of them, and they spread out through the chamber like soldiers taking position. But these weren't soldiers, these were predators, and I was prey. The thing inside, Lisa laughed and stepped aside, like it was presenting me to its friends. Here he is, brothers, the Marine who thinks he can fight us. The largest of the creatures stepped forward when it spoke. Its voice was like grinding stone. You smell of death, warrior. You have killed before. Good. We prefer our meat seasoned with violence. I fired my gun at the leader. All 6 shots sent a mass. The bullets went right through it like it was made of smoke. It laughed and kept walking toward me. Iron cannot harm us here, Marine. We are not of your world. But my rosary was getting hotter against my chest, and I remembered something from my Catholic school days. Something about blessed objects and holy water. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small bottle of holy water I'd been carrying. Since my wife's funeral, I'd never used it, never really believed in it, but my grandmother had given it to me and said it would protect me from evil. I splashed the holy water on the nearest creature. It screamed and stumbled backward, smoke rising from its skin where the water had touched. The other creatures hissed and moved away from me. Blessed water, the leader snarled. You come prepared, Marine, but you have so little, and we are so many. It was right. I had maybe a few drops left, not enough to fight all of them. But I had something else. I had my training, my knowledge of the desert, and my faith. And I had Lisa, still fighting inside, her own body. I looked around the chamber and realized something. The ash on the floor wasn't just ash. It was bone dust, ground up and scattered around the portal. And the pictures on the walls weren't just pictures. They were warnings, left by people who'd fought these things before. This wasn't the first time the portal had opened. Native Americans had been fighting these creatures for centuries, keeping them trapped, keeping them weak. The cave was built on sacred ground, and that's why the creatures couldn't leave it. They were bound to this place, fed by it, but also limited by it. Lisa, I called out. I know you're in there. This is sacred ground. They can't leave this cave, can they? That's why they need the portal to grow stronger. For a moment, Lisa's real voice came through. The burial ground, she whispered. This was a burial ground. The spirits of the ancestors are still here, holding them back. The leader creature roared and lunged at me. I dodged and rolled, using the combat training that had kept me alive in Vietnam. But this wasn't a human enemy. This thing could fly, could phase through solid rock, could attack from any direction. I needed a weapon that could hurt it. I needed something blessed, something holy. I pulled out my rosary and wrapped it around my fist. When the creature came at me again, I punched it in the face. The rosary burned its skin like acid, and it screamed and backed away. The cross, Lisa's voice called out. Use the cross. I looked at my rosary, at the small silver crucifix hanging from the beads. It was warming up in my hand, getting hotter every second. The other creatures were circling me now, but they were keeping their distance. They were afraid of the cross, afraid of what it represented. You cannot defeat us all, Marine, the leader said, and the portal grows stronger every moment. Soon it will be too large to close, too powerful to stop. Behind them, the crack in the wall was still growing. More shapes were moving on the other side, trying to push through. If I didn't stop this now, the whole world would be overrun with these things. I looked at Lisa, still fighting the thing inside her. She was the key. She was connected to the portal, feeding it, but also controlling it. If I could free her, maybe she could close it. Lisa, I said, you have to fight it. You have to take control. I can't, she whispered. It's too strong. Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think. You're still human, still alive. That's something they can never be. The thing inside her snarled and stepped toward me. But I saw Lisa's real eyes fighting to stay in control. Remember who you are, I said. Remember your family, your friends, your life. Don't let them take that away from you. Lisa's face twisted as she fought for control. The creatures around us were getting agitated, hissing and clawing at the air. Their connection to her was weakening. I remember, Lisa said in her own voice. I remember everything. And then she did something that saved us all. She threw herself at the portal, at the crack in the wall, and grabbed hold of the edges with her bare hands. I can close it, she screamed, but I can't hold it alone. I didn't hesitate. I ran to Lisa and grabbed her hands, helped her pull the edges of the portal together. The creatures behind us were screaming, trying to stop us, but the sacred ground was working against them now. The spirits of the ancestors were rising, pushing back against the invaders. The portal was fighting us, trying to stay open. It was like wrestling with a living thing, something that wanted to feed and grow and spread. But Lisa was stronger than it expected. She was human, and humans don't give up easy. I can feel them, she said, her voice strained with effort. The people who died here before, fighting these things, they're helping us. The crack in the wall was getting smaller, but the creatures weren't giving up. They threw themselves at us, clawing and biting, trying to stop us from closing their way into our world. I held my rosary up like a shield, and the cross blazed. With light, the creatures fell back, hissing and smoking. They were losing power as the portal closed, becoming less solid, less real. You cannot stop us forever. Marine, the leader snarled. We will find another way. We will return, maybe, I said, but not today. Lisa gave one final pull, and the portal slammed shut with a sound like thunder. The creatures screamed and dissolved into smoke, sucked back into whatever hell they came from. The red light died, and the chamber went dark, except for my flickering flashlight. Lisa collapsed, but she was breathing. The thing inside her was gone, burned away when the portal closed. She was hurt, exhausted, but alive, human. I carried her out of the cave, out into the desert sunlight. The normal world had never looked so good. The air was clean, the sky was blue, and the rocks were just rocks again. The official report said there was a cave-in caused by a gas leak. 3 people dead, 1 survivor. The geology team's research was classified, and their findings were buried in some government file cabinet. I was told to forget what I saw, to never talk about it. But I couldn't forget. How do you forget something like that? How do you go back to your normal life after seeing hell trying to break into our world? I stayed a ranger for another year, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. Every cave looked suspicious. Every shadow seemed to hide something waiting to jump out. I started drinking more, sleeping less. The nightmares from Vietnam came back, mixed with new nightmares about creatures with red eyes and voices like grinding stone. Finally, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I quit the Park Service and went to seminary, became a priest. People thought I'd lost my mind, but I knew what I was doing. I'd seen evil, real evil, and I wanted to be on the other side of that fight. I've been Father O'Sullivan now for 30 years. I perform exorcisms. I bless houses. I help people who've seen things they can't explain. And sometimes, late at night, I get calls from other park rangers, other law enforcement officers, other people who've stumbled into places where the walls between worlds are thin. I tell them what I learned in that cave. Evil is real, but so is good. Darkness exists, but so does light. And sometimes, if you're brave enough and faithful enough, you can hold the line. You can keep the monsters where they belong. Lisa Jean became a professor, teaches geology at a university back east. We stay in touch, send Christmas cards, check on each other. She never talks about what happened in the cave, but I know she remembers. I know she's watching for signs, same as me. Because that creature was right about one thing. They will find another way. They will return. The portal at Skull Rock is closed, but there are other thin places, other weak spots where determined evil can push through. That's why I tell this story. Not to scare people, but to prepare them. To let them know that there are guardians watching, people who've seen the darkness and chosen to fight it. My daughter Jenny is grown now, has kids of her own. She thinks her dad went a little crazy after her mum died, became too religious, too paranoid. Maybe she's right, but she wears the rosary I gave her, and she teaches her children to pray. Some protections are worth passing down, even if you never have to use them. Even if you pray to God, you never have to use them, because the portal guardians are still out there, still waiting, still looking for another way through. And when they come, we'll be ready for them. We have to be.